You smell that? That's longsword. I love the smell of longsword in the morning. Okay, now that we got that nice montage out of the way, I'm here to talk about Monster Hunter Wilds. This is the second time I've talked about a Monster Hunter game on this channel, with the video on Monster Hunter Rise's low-rank experience pre-Sunbreak being one of my earliest videos. That feels quaint compared to where we've been the last 3-ish years, because I actually know what I'm doing when making videos. Mostly. Anyways, I'm going to do the same for the low-rank experience in Wilds as well, so let's get the show on the road, and don't forget to do the usual thing of liking and subscribing if you haven't already. It helps the channel out. Now grab your weapon of choice and your weirdly adorable bipedal cat buddy, and let's get to hunting. I need to talk about the tech stuff real fast because I feel like that's going to be a point of contention for this game. At the time of writing and recording, Monster Hunter Wilds is playable, but very technically demanding, and more than a little jank at times. Aside from the standard frame rate stuff that everyone talks about, which honestly doesn't even feel that bad most of the time, if you're playing on a 20 series NVIDIA card like I am, you're going to notice some problems. Chief among them being that the game will straight up crash on you. I don't have any footage of said crashes occurring, but it's a thing to be made aware of. I fixed the crashing by, and feel free to laugh at me because it's me at peak clown shoes mode, by simply removing the game from Steam's download queue after I canceled the download for the high-resolution texture pack. This was after I came to the realization that I would not benefit from it in a meaningful way. Feel free to laugh. No, go ahead! Pause the video and have a chuckle. I do not mind. It was pretty funny in hindsight. Are we good? Good. There's also the game in lower settings just straight up looking a tad squashed, but that's a consequence of trying to run the new hotness on a nearly 5-year-old system. If you're looking for a more in-depth report on the tech side of Monster Hunter Wilds, I'd recommend Digital Foundry. They're usually the go-to on this kind of stuff. Now let's change things up and get into the nitty-gritty, shall we? Monster Hunter Wilds is the first entry of the 6th generation of Monster Hunter games, a thing I didn't even know about because I shunted Monster Hunter Wilds out of my mind after it was announced because I knew I was going to play it anyway and anything else was just icing on the cake. This is also the second game where it tries to go all in on a more cinematic presentation in regards to the low-rank experience by way of going a more A to B to C type of narrative. And the spin this time around is that the Eastward Forbidden Lands has been seen as a right place for expedition due to a young boy named Nata, who was found alone on the edge of its desert, having been separated by his village by a monster his people refer to as the White Wraith. While I'll admit that a lot of this is just Capcom going out of its way to use Wilds as an onboarding process, I could not help but be compelled by it in a lot of ways. Specifically in that it focuses a lot more on the aspects of hunting that World kind of never touches on, like how villages defend themselves from monsters, the roles hunters play in this weird, possibly post-apocalyptic society, and how sometimes maintaining a balance in nature means that some wildlife needs to be hunted, be it a population explosion or even an invasive species. Rise kind of got in on those aspects as well, but with you being one of the hunters defending their village from a mysterious natural phenomenon. But this is surprising because in a lot of ways, this feels like a sequel to Monster Hunter World, and World was more, we're in a new unexplored area, let's see what new stuff is here for us to hunt, and also maybe catch this kaiju that's covered in volcanoes. To do this, I recreated my hunter from the last 2 games and christened him Mosswell the Ninth. And accompanying him is his faithful companion, Carnegie the Third. They both also feel way more like characters participating in the story because they both talk now. I mean, Palicos have always talked according to the hashtag deep lore, but your player character talks now, and they can be characterized in some neat ways. My go-to is to have Mosswell always asking what things taste like because it's funny and I'm the guy who frequently wonders what weird animals taste like. And while all of this is cool, it's basically window dressing for a tutorial. And speaking of tutorials, I gotta talk about the mechanical aspects of the experience and how that plays into it. Being the new generation of Monster Hunter, Wilds ushers us in by way of new mechanics that are introduced by the aforementioned low-rank experience. The first of these is the trusty mount companion, the Sacred. Introducing the opening sequence, the Sacred is the latest iteration of an idea that's been in Monster Hunter since Iceborne with the Tail Riders and massively expanded with the Palamute and Rise. Your green, legally distinct Chocobo is your main mode of transportation if you want to beeline it straight to the monster, which I chose not to do when I was doing hunts to farm materials for gear. But I do see that the majority of the story quests, and from what I'm showing you for the first chapter's gameplay, is me on the Sacred having conversations, or just jumping straight into the hunt. And while I know that you can turn it off in the menus, I can't help but notice just how guided it felt. The Sacred's movement still feels like a downgrade from the Palamutes and Rise, but I think it's more me missing the Ninja Doggo than anything else. When I say that Wilds feels more like a guided experience in low ranks, I mean it. I've seen the slow drip feeding of mechanics and items that will be tossed at you in quicker succession in earlier games, and while I can see how it's beneficial to people who are new to Monster Hunter, or for people like me who haven't played one of these in a long time, I can see how this can annoy the old heads. That also extends to the hunts feeling weirdly short and there not being an immediate option to meal up beforehand. And while I can forgive some of this pacing being a tad much, I just want to throw that out there for the sake of it being known. But I will say that when you fight the monsters, it's the highlight of the experience. Almost as if it's in the game's name. I guess we'll never know. Facetiousness aside, a lot of the new changes introduced to the minute-to-minute combat of Monster Hunter Wilds are great. Chief among them being the new Wounds system. Wounds are basically a way to incentivize attacks on the same part of the body over and over again by having those parts of the body glow bright red. You can see where wounds are by holding left trigger on your controller. This gives you a free aim that you can then use to detonate those wounds for a massive amount of damage and extra monster parts. On paper, it's pretty cool. In practice, it's even cooler because you're getting rewarded for doing what you're supposed to be doing, which is beating up the monster. This also has the side effect of being a little too powerful in those story hunts because it could lead to instances where you're popping wounds and effectively chain stunning the monster in some ways. I'm sure when you get to high rank, aka actual Monster Hunter, it levels out somewhat. But I think I'll take this as an opportunity to talk about weapons. The weapons in Monster Hunter Wilds are for the most part the same as they were in World Post Iceborne, when they got a bunch of new tricks to mess with. Some of which have become staples of said weapons. Hello, Spirit Sheath on the longsword. And while I'm kind of sad that the weapons have been de-wire bugged, all of the wound mechanics more than make up for it. You can also take up to 2 weapons with you at a time, and switching between them is as easy as KFC, meaning that I can take both dual blades and longsword, which I do. Speaking of longsword, it's the weapon I'm using the most because, well, you all saw the montage at the beginning. The longsword's sick, and I like cutting off the tails of monsters to get those extra parts. And this is on top of the new stuff, like being able to charge your spirit slashes for an immediate roundhouse slash for quicker levels, Crimson mode, which makes the basic attacks do more damage for a short amount of time, and this sick follow-up to the Spirit Helmbreaker called the Spirit Release Slash, which gives you hyper armor, because apparently I'm Capcom's special boy. These feel like they were all made with the new monsters in mind, and so far, they've all been hits. You've got Chotacabra, a weird frog gorilla thing that I adore, Quemetris, which is Monster Hunter's take on the cockatrice that uses its tail to both kick up sand and ignite flames. Lalabrina, my personal favorite, because it's what if a giant killer spider was also a ballerina and a thorned rose. My brother's exact words upon seeing it were, "That thing is terrifying. I can't wait to wear its skin." The other monsters I've fought in Chapter 1 are also hits, but these are my favorites. Overall, while things are tuned a bit weirdly, I can accept it as being part of the low rank, let's get the new players on board experience. I don't mind it as much, but it can feel weird at times. Monster Hunter Wilds is, from an artistic standpoint, a very pretty video game. All of the characters look cool, the weapons look cool, the armor absolutely swagged out. But the real star of the show is the wildlife and the monsters themselves. You've got the small monsters that roam around and live their lives despite my best efforts, and you got the big monsters running around like they own the place, and the turf wars that they get into are some of the most absurd things I've seen in a Monster Hunter game to date, and that is saying something. There's even a new weather system that affects the gameplay. There are at least 2 different set pieces that are propped up by this system, like fighting a Dashagama Alpha in a combination Thunder and Sandstorm, and fighting an Uthdana while rain is hammering down on you. There is a lot of aesthetically ambitious stuff on display here, and I am eager to see more of it. And this also extends to the food. The RE engine is proving to be the most advanced engine in video games when it comes to rendering out realistic, yet aesthetically pleasing food. And don't play Wilds while you're hungry like I did, because seeing what was essentially cheese-stuffed garlic naan being rendered in full will make you hungry. Just thinking about it does that to me right now. I want cheese-stuffed garlic naan, dang it! The opening hours of Monster Hunter Wilds are some of the weirder I've had in a Monster Hunter game. Because I like a lot of the new stuff, but can't help be puzzled by some of the pacing of the hunts and the narrative. But those ultimately don't bother me because it keeps drip-feeding me more new monsters to fight, and I'm super into it. I do advise holding off on the PC version for a bit, though. It's not quite ready for prime time. But aside from that, Monster Hunter Wilds are shaping up to be one of my favorite games of 2025. The adventures of Mosswell and Carnegie continue.